This one is to be determined numbering. Any application filed under section 8, 10, or 11 may be withdrawn upon written request by the applicant anytime prior to the submission of any public hearing notice or advertisement, provided that the request for withdrawal shall be honored only with the consent of, this is their language, either the zoning commission, the board of county commissioners, or whatever body has advertised the hearing. On something like that, we would change it to Granville Township Board of Supervisors, since any meeting of the zoning is a meeting of the Granville Township Board of Supervisors also. Is there any discussion on that? Is there any discussion on that? And I think this is important because there was no provisions in there for a permit withdrawal or a suspension. I mean, we never mentioned in the county or the township, and I don't even know if Wells County has it. You know, it'd be nice to have some guidance in there, so people knew the process, so we weren't sitting there wondering, can this be done, can this not be done? If it's spelled out in there, we know. Is there any discussion on that?
Well, do you have a motion or?
Oh yeah, we can have a motion on it and then second discussion.
Make a motion to approve with the Granville Township Board of Supervisors stuck in there.
Grady made a motion to approve it with the Granville Township Board of Supervisors revision. I'll second that motion. Okay, any discussion? Any discussion? I'm gonna go over to that next column. It says, proposed by zoning currently do not have language for how and when an application can be withdrawn. Discussion should also include how the application fee is returned in whole, less fees, etc. So, what would anybody have to say there? I mean, if they withdrew their permit, if somebody requests a variance, or somebody requests a permit or whatever, and the meeting hasn't been noticed yet, and they wanna withdraw it, should they get all of their money back? Should they get part of their money back? None of it back? I mean, at the discretion of the board, as far as how much they've invested into the research type of deal. I mean, that's what should be in this part of the discussion. Once you go through the noticing, I mean, you have your time and your money invested, and basically you're just waiting for your meeting. I mean, you have your mailers that have went out and your stuff that's went to the paper, and you have that type of stuff. But if it hasn't been noticed, what says it, everybody?
If it hasn't been noticed, then I think they could get, they'd have to cover the fees, any fees that were incurred.
Yeah.
But if you come to your meeting, I think there's nothing.
You've done all the work.
You've done all the work, you're all ready for it.
Okay, so if we put in there, we'd make that change to Granville Township Board of Supervisors, and then,
If we put in there, if meeting hasn't been noticed, the fee would be returned minus any expenses incurred. Once meeting has been noticed, then I guess. Is that a good break? That once it's been noticed, then you keep it or not?
do you keep all of it or part of it, or
I don't know.
what's the discussion? Eric, what do you think? Steve?
I think that sounds okay to me.
So if meeting has not been noticed, fee to be returned minus any expenses incurred. So like your mailing fees, like if you sent out notices to landowners.
Because you
Any
could be doing that.
legal type stuff that you would have sent off. Any printings, that type of stuff.
Right.
But if the meeting has been noticed, then it really doesn't allow. You know, it says up here, may be withdrawn upon written request by the applicant anytime prior to the submission of any public hearing notice. So once the meeting's noticed, then it's like it can't be
Oh, okay.
pulled. It is the way it reads up top.
I mean, I don't know, that's a big deal. I mean, it seems like maybe you should be able to withdraw at any time before the hearing, but you forfeit your fee if you do that after the first notice.
And see, we gotta have
But I don't-
notices into the paper on, I think Tuesday at 5 is when they, paper guy.
I just started.
Okay.
I think today is my third day.
Okay.
So,
So I think
we did
Nathan,
discuss it. I believe it's Wednesday nights. Before we close, we close at like 4:30. So if you get ads in before then or notices before then.
and I was thinking that Nathan, I'm not saying you're wrong, I was thinking that Nathan said like mid-morning Wednesday is when they wanted them, but maybe he
Yes,
told me,
that's.
maybe he told me mid-morning Wednesday because he knew that I'd send it at noon. But, so I mean, what would happen if you sent it to the paper you already got your notice in, because you're on top of your game and you had it sent in on Monday, and on Thursday, you get a notice that they wanna pull it, but it's already went to the printer. And then how do you,
Maybe you say published, once it's published then.
okay,
Instead of,
Are we talking about the $100 fee?
no, we're talking about being able to pull your permit.
Maybe in
Like
part of
application.
the price, is it 2,500?
First,
I mean, what's the dollar amount? I mean, is it for a
Well,
permit?
in,
In this-
10,000.
Get up to 10,000.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
So
significant.
it's significant.
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah,
It can be, or it could be,
small.
if it was $1,000 plus $250 a turbine, it could be $1,250 if it's one turbine, in the instance of wind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this isn't just in the
Yeah,
instance of
this,
wind,
this,
right?
this
It's
could be
all
for
the
if somebody wanted to do
conditional.
a confined animal feeding operation, or a variance or an amendment or something like that. You know, so it could be as little as 100. We didn't have a mechanism in here for this, and neither did Eddy County. Burley County did.
would it be fair to say just at the board's at
If
the
the meeting has
Granville
not
Township-
been noticed, fee to be returned minus any expenses at discretion of the
Township board.
township board. I mean, is that fair enough?
I think so.
Okay. So, we would tack on at the end. And I'm gonna say this was Greg's motion. If meeting has not been noticed, fee to be returned minus any expenses incurred at township board of supervisors discretion. And I'll second that. Any discussion? Any discussion?
I don't know, I shouldn't. So I think maybe where the board discretion maybe should come in is after it's been noticed.
But here it says it can't, if you go up top.
Oh, yeah, that's right, okay, they can't pull it out.
May be withdrawn upon written request by the applicant anytime prior, so before the submission of any public hearing notice.
Okay, yeah,
So once it's noticed, it's kind of locked in.
yep, okay.
And I wonder how the county adopted that. Tell you what, since we're just advancing these, we can research that more. Fair enough? Everybody in agreement? Okay, so a motion to advance that as if the meeting has not been noticed, fee to be returned minus any expenses at township board of supervisors discretion. All in favor, say aye.
Alright,
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Now we get to the last page, the one we've all been looking for. proposed amendment, setback from non-participating property, implement setbacks from non-participating property landowners to 3 times tower height, ground to tip. Stated rationale for proposed amendments was North Dakota Farmers Union Convention Directive F. Is there any discussion?
I have another question, and I'm sorry I'm full of questions,
You're fine.
and new to the discussion, but you had mentioned, like health considerations, and I was wondering if you could explain it to me. The purpose of increasing the setback to keep things, I think you said healthy for, I guess.
I didn't know I mentioned anything about
Okay.
health. But allowing them to use that property up to, okay,
Well, I guess then I'll just broaden it. What is the purpose of 3 times the tip height versus 1 time, other than Farmers Union said it?
To keep fiberglass, whatever could happen from what's going on somebody else's property to affect your property.
So kind of a health.
No,
Safety.
well, that could,
Safety.
that could be okay, that could be viewed as health for like animals type of deal, like the shed. And I think that's maybe where Farmers Union was coming from, because blades will shed a little bit of fiberglass. And who knows, maybe new blades don't shed fiberglass, but at one time they would shed a little fiberglass, right?
They used to.
Yeah, okay. So that could be viewed as a environmental / health concern. And the other thing, I think it has to do with, making sure like you can still use, cause we're building these in agricultural land. Being certain that they can still go out there and apply and not apply chemical with an airplane or with a drone and not be at fear of running into blades. I know they talked about they can shut them off, or they can turn them, or they can do stuff like that to kind of clear an air path or whatever. I think the biggest point was the rationale was Farmers Union brought it up, and they're a big ag organization, and we're surrounded by agriculture.
wind is also a resource, and when you have them close, it affects the other person's resource.
Is there any discussion? Or does Gwen have more?
So with this proposal and the proposed towers that are, like you said, was there 22 for Grandfield?
When they submitted, no, I shouldn't even say that. I was at a meeting, and it was the road hall meeting, I think is what it was. And I believe that they had 22 pegged out on a map for Grandfield. And I think they were, maybe that number came from when they were talking about projected tax revenue to the township. It is, I think, it was one of those 2 meetings, doesn't have a number.
We've never,
So it is 22 in Grandfield?
That's the correct number we're looking at.
Okay.
we've asked for maps of where the towers were gonna be, and we've never gotten any.
So that's my question, with this proposed regulation, do you know, I mean, what the impact would be, the other landowners, like who would lose wind towers, or what their financial loss would be due to this regulation,
No,
or who it would be? I mean, that would be my concern as people that we've represented over the past, is if they're expecting to get a tower, wanna get it, and now this regulation takes the tower away. Cause like Levi and I, remember we first talked about this a long time ago, which you and I have always had interesting discussions, I remember even when you were in high school, but, the one that you said is, it's not my right to tell you if you can have a wind tower on your land, nor is it your right to tell me I have to have a wind tower, or whatever, remember that conversation?
oh, yeah,
So I'm just wondering, if we took this regulation, who is it gonna affect, and how is their towers, who will lose towers, and who won't, and how does it impact
we have
the
no
other
way of knowing,
landowners?
cause we've asked for maps and
So if you get that map and and you see it's gonna affect a substantial amount of landowners in Grandfield, would you really want that regulation still, or not?
I'm gonna, so, this is, I don't have a map in front of me,
Mm,
and in a lot of these decisions that we've made, I try to not pay attention to a map or who's gonna gain or who's gonna lose. Because I don't wanna be in the business of taking from Eric or giving to Steve, or taking from Ross and giving to whoever. So I try not to look at that, because otherwise it's gonna be like, he's doing it because he doesn't like somebody, or he's doing this because he likes somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't
I
wanna get,
agree with
and
that
I don't
100%.
wanna go in there and get that mentality on it. My personal thoughts are, now this is my thoughts. Private property rights ends at the private property line, but the use, the enjoyment of my personal private property cannot affect the use, the enjoyment, and the value of the neighboring personal private property. And that's how we end up at these setbacks. And,
Which I mean, I get
and
that.
try to strike a balance.
Yeah, and that's 100% the balance, cause like when we lived in Detroit Lakes, there was people that were pissed off at the farmers thinking all their cows are dying because people were using Roundup on a bordering property, and there's cows dying from Roundup and they were infertile, and so I get all that, but I mean, it's just, again, the property, what's difference between, because one thing that we talked all about here, like Brenda, I remember one of the first meetings, like you were concerned for health, so, and I applaud PRC for this, is that we went after them and said, hey, from any non-participant, you know, we want the mile setback from the residents, because, you know, it's a health concern. But now from property lines, I mean, I think it'll affect a lot of other people's land.
So my comment, I hear what you're saying. So my thought initially is, typically in Granfield Township, where the project lies, is in the southern half of the township. Fair enough? I mean, I think for the most part. And we've gotten letters and we've gotten phone calls and letters of support and everything else, and we hear that it has such wonderful local support, in that there's a lot of signed up land. So on this deal here, the only stuff that would be affected is if it borders a non-participant that isn't willing to sign a variance. Is there chunks of ground? Well,
We don't even know
what's the setback distance from the perimeter of the wind farm, like the outer boundary?
I think it's 2.5 times, wasn't that in
We went
the
through it.
ordinance?
Rotor diameter, right?
I don't know.
So
I
what
think
I'm
it was
saying
in there
is,
somewhere.
2.5 times.
so they have the setback from their perimeter of their project footprint, which is larger than 1.5. Or not 1.5, 1.1. That's what the state is right now. Your setback from the perimeter is larger than 1.1, isn't it, Lucas?
Yes,
Okay.
from the outside edge of the project boundary.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a different setback than non-participant parcels inside the project
Yep.
boundary.